Welcome back to Genshin Interact. Today we're going to be just doing another Interact post, or the next article of Interact post, looking over the stuff that's happened in the past week, some speculations for the future, what we've seen in the game, some of the events that have some time left.
Yeah, that's right. And so looking in-game specifically, the event that is going on right now, we have gotten all 5 days of that. And so just make sure you don't forget about it. There's some easy prima gems and also some fun ways, especially for new players, maybe to get a good feel for some trial characters. There were a lot of fun characters. I know I had a lot of fun playing with Nervalet because I don't have him. So, man, he's a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys will have a lot of fun with that event. Also, don't forget about the Spiral Abyss. That is going to be resetting soon. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you grab those prima gems.
And then also make sure that you guys are paying attention that the special program announcement is coming up soon in about a week or so. At this point right now, we do know that it was supposed to be on last Friday, and it has changed just because of some of the things that are happening inside the country. So we do want to just make sure that you guys know the special program announcement is going to be coming up in the future. Make sure you guys keep your ears open to that so that you guys can actually figure out the new content that's coming out.
Yeah, I will say that I think I heard, from hearsay, like a friend told me that it might be the next Friday, so exactly 7 days after the original time they had planned. Again, that's just hearsay, so that's not anything official I heard.
All right, now we're going to be going into the next part, looking at the speculations for the future that we could possibly see. And the first thing that we see is actually a lot of the stuff that's going to be happening with Emily. And Emily is a new character. There are a lot of different fan art of people trying to show what she looks like and whatnot. But I'm kind of excited to see what element she could play in. It doesn't seem like it's very easy to tell what element she is just by her designs online right now.
It'll be cool to, as we get closer to, we think she's coming around 4.8. So as we get closer to there, it'll be, getting more information on her will definitely be interesting to see.
We do see after this the banner speculations for the versions 4.2 to 4.4 and 4.2. Once again, these things will be solidified in the 4.2 special program announcement, which will hopefully be on Friday, but we'll just have to wait and see for that exactly. But we'll see, hopefully we'll be able to see Baiju and Farina alongside of Charlotte, and then as well as there is a little bit of speculation whether or not it's going to be some other characters in the future. But on the other side, we see Ayato and Sino, at least for the second half of 4.2. So if these are the characters you guys are kind of looking for, that's kind of cool. And then Rift, at least, what did you get for 4.3?
So for 4.3, most people are saying and have been saying this is going to be Navia's first banner, and we're going to be seeing Ito running alongside her. So I think that's pretty interesting because those are both Geo Claymores, so it's kind of like take your pick kind of an idea, which I'm excited for Navia. I'm kind of hoping I can get her just to see how she works with the new crystallized thing. It's definitely been interesting seeing how that's going to play out and what we've seen in her kit, which we will be going over in more detail later on in the video, so do stay tuned for that. And then on the second half of 4.3, speculations seem to suggest Albedo and Raiden. Now, there was some talk about it not being Albedo, and some people were actually saying Ayaka would be with Raiden in second half 4.3, and then it went back to Albedo. Now, my thought on this is, I looked at some banner history. Last time we had Ayaka was 3.5, and last time we had Albedo was 3.1. So naturally, I'm led to believe, and again, this is just personal opinion, but I really think there's a higher chance of it being Albedo just because of how long it's been. It was last October that was 3.1. That was Nilu's first banner along with Albedo. So I tend to believe that it's going to be Albedo and Raiden Shogun.
I think that's pretty fair to say just because it has been a very long time. In Genshin, as we are getting longer, we saw, especially with characters that were maybe even not as popular, they were getting about a year until they were actually coming back for a rerun. And that's pretty typical to see, but now we're adding even more characters to the fold. So it's going to take even longer for these characters that are in a rotation that maybe just had one. It's going to take them even longer possibly than a year to actually get a rerun, unless, of course, they're a fan favorite, or maybe we get triple banners in the future, whatever may happen. But version 4.4 looks like we're actually going to be seeing Cloud Retainer as a character, which is pretty cool. And I know we've talked about that in recent articles of the Genshin Interact post. And alongside of Zhao. Now, this is an ultimately cracked banner in my personal opinion. It's kind of like having Shenhe alongside of Ayaka because it's Cloud Retainer is supposed to be an animal support that actually helps other animal characters. And at least from what I've personally seen, I know there are going to be people that are going to say Farazan was on Wanderer's banner and all these other characters are on all these other banners for animal supports that do a lot of help for animal and blah, blah, blah. But This is a 5-star that is coming out alongside of Zhao. And she's going to be a healer, all these other stuff. She's going to do a lot of stuff to actually help it, rather than maybe help swirl and help damage buffs on swirling and whatnot, and shred resistance for other characters of other elements. She's actually going to be basically like a 5-star Farazan, and maybe even some healing along with it, instead of just being kind of molded into a certain area. And then on the other side of 4.4, on the second half, we see Ganyu and Shenhe, which that's just another goated banner to just see as well, considering Shenhe is a very, very good buff for Ganyu, and seeing both those characters together.
Yeah, for sure. And something that just popped in my head, you know, we were just talking about Albedo versus Ayaka, and some people were kind of going back and forth with that. Honestly, since 4.4, it's semi-close, but it is still, you know, a ways away, because we are going into, you know, 4.2 right now. So maybe Ganyu could be switched out for Ayaka, question mark? I don't know, just a thought that popped in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's just so much that can change, especially even in 4.2 that could change.
Right.
Anything can really happen until they actually give us the real things that are actually going to happen.
For sure. Yeah.
And then we also saw that Dahlia is another character that is going to be popping up soon, and that was a character, I believe, once again, we covered in our last Interact post article, and that was talking about Dahlia as a 4-star, and he was the person that was depicted as one of the one of the church members in the cathedral in Mondstadt. He's going to be a hydro catalyst, and it seems like he has some sort of idea of maybe giving a bonus to hydro damage and maybe buffing some other hydro characters, which great thing for being in the area of Fontaine, you know, especially with Nervalette, Farina, all this other stuff. So that'll be kind of cool and interesting.
And the next thing we see, we did already kind of talk about Cloud Retainer a little bit earlier, and that being with 4.4 with Zhao. And the next thing we see, maybe for some even further away banners, so we're kind of getting more and more speculative about this, but 4.5, what we've been seeing is Chiori. And, you know, she was originally intended as a 4-star, which is kind of interesting to me, but she has been promoted to a 5-star, and that kind of reminded me about how some people might be saying Sijuan is a 5-star, but I had originally thought of her as a 4-star as well, so kind of a similar thing there. And I think we will talk about her later. We don't really have any further information about Chiori specifically, but I know from certain artist renditions and some art I've seen, I'm pretty excited for Chiori and very hopeful to see what she can do in game.
I think, at least from what we talked about in the last one, once again, as we talked about here, maybe even buffing, you know, she'll be a few versions after, but maybe even being a Geo character to buff
That's right.
Navia,
You made the analogy that she's the quote Shenhe to Ayaka.
Right.
She's the, you know, Chiori to Navia kind of a thing. So
Right.
that'd be kind of cool. But 4.6, this is where we're kind of seeing a speculation on Arlecchino's release. So do keep that in mind. She's probably going to be a really amazing Pyro DPS. So we'll see how she keeps up the competition with Linia and Hu Tao. So that'll be awesome. And then for 4.7, this is where we're thinking Clorin, the Electro Fontaine DPS. So it'll be kind of cool to see how she can trump maybe characters like Cyno catching. I don't know how you're going to trump Raiden being an Archon. I think Raiden's just so unique and different. And I think that's the thing with Archons. What they do is just so different from all these other characters.
Or even just goes above and beyond what these other characters already do. And I think that's what makes Raiden so great.
Exactly.
I think Navia, for instance, for Geo, she's just going to be this, you know, huge Geo damage dealer, and that'll be kind of cool. And at least from what we've seen in the past about how Cloron's going to be the idea of a character who's going to be an Electro DPS that maybe uses her gun as well. You know, Navia using maybe turrets, which we're going to talk about in a second, as well as with, you know, Cloron, maybe even using her gun and constantly using stuff, giving maybe energy back to characters, that Electro kind of feel, giving energy and whatnot. Anyways, looking at the next thing that we saw, and that was Navia's kit, and then the artifact set that is probably going to come alongside of her. Now, we've talked about this artifact set, but we're finally getting something that we can actually put some solid behind, some actual, you know, worth to what we're saying. But first, we are going to talk about the actual, you know, talents and stuff, the skill and burst in Navia's kit. And it seems like one of her talents is going to increase her attack. She's not going to be like most Geo characters, it seems like, that stack off of defense. That could obviously change. She could bounce off of Elemental Mastery for all we know. But it seems like she's going to be stacking off of attack. And because she's a huge crystallized character that gets a bunch of buffs and damage from crystallize, this talent says that she'll basically maybe increase attack as you stack with different elemental, teammates. So the more different types of elements maybe you have in a team, maybe the better for her.
Which does kind of push away from the, I guess you could call meta of when you want to use a Geo DPS, like Noelle, for instance, or Ito. The idea is you throw in a bunch of other Geo characters, right? It kind of goes without saying, throw in like Goro, throw in Zhonglivia, maybe even Ningguang, I don't know. And you're just going full Geo with like maybe one non-Geo for energy, like Fischl, or just Bennett for more attack and damage. Whereas this one is like you want Navia as your DPS, and then you go like 3 different elements. So have a completely unique team, and you can create all these interesting reactions, but mainly to create a lot of crystallize.
I think it's funny because I kind of want to see, there have been so many different names for different types of teams. And, with a taser team or whatever, that's the electro charge team. Freeze team is, you obviously keep the freeze, but Fridge team is throwing in Dendro inside of it, as like the lettuce or whatever, or, some different vegetables.
Yeah, it's like
a
salad in the fridge. So it's like, we'll just call it a Fridge team.
Exactly. So my petition, at least, I want the record to be known for the crystallized team is, I know that, for instance, the soup team is just a bunch of different elements just slapped together. So if it's going to be a Navia soup team, and there's crystallized among it, I want this to be called rock candy, and I'm letting that be known. If it is, I want to take full credit for it. So, looking at the elemental skill, we're speculated to think that it's going to fire a shot with, I'm thinking, these turrets, and it's going to be obviously with the Geo, so it's going to be a Geo hit. And then it's going to possibly, in time, going to be maybe absorbing the crystallized reaction shards that are on the ground, and maybe even, increasing the damage because of it.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Goro. I know inside of Goro's burst, he does a similar thing. It's called Crystal Collapse, and it does damage based on his defense. It's kind of a similar thing there with, you want to create crystal shards, and Goro kind of pulls them in and does a big Geo hit. And so it's kind of cool to see that, Navia will do something similar, and that's just with her skill, not her burst. So looking at her burst, though, she'll set up a turret with sustained Geo elemental effects, and then also provide a 12-second buff based on speculations. We're thinking this will be like a 15-second cooldown, so only 3-second downtime at C0, which is not bad, especially for DPS, because you're going to be moving on to supports anyways.
I also think that the idea that this 12-second buff is actually probably maybe even going to be an infusion of some sort. I think that'll really help her get a lot of those crystallized reactions off, because if not, it's going to be very difficult for her to create these reactions for the crystallize. So I think having an infusion is almost guaranteed to be necessary for her kit.
Right, and then what that makes me think of too is like kind of keeping on the competition with someone like Ito, who seems to be, speculated to run even with her. If Ito gets a Geo infusion, why can't Navia? Again, I guess that would depend on the kit, so anything could happen, but that would definitely be kind of cool.
Now going on to the artifact set, things that we've at least seen is that this might be another 2-piece attack percent set. That'll at least be nice to get another attack set for people to kind of, throw into the mix of other characters that can use it. And then the 4-piece set is probably going to be gaining attack and Geo damage bonus of some sort when you gain the crystallized reactions, and then maybe some sort of effect doubling these effects that are already on the 4-piece. Now, my thoughts on this set are kind of actually high. I'm very, very excited for this because for once, we're not getting a character that completely changes an element. And obviously, she's going to work best with this set. And we are getting that, so I don't want to say we're not. We are getting that, but at the same time, we're getting an artifact set that can change other Geo characters that get infusions.
Exactly.
Like Ito and your other DPS, which is, I know people use Noelle. And in doing so, you're basically having the idea that you could throw these 4-piece sets on them. For instance, I know Noelle, you want a high defense so that you can stack, but basically it's kind of very similar to Hu Tao, right? If I'm right, that it stacks for her attack more, and so she can do more damage.
Right, the HP is just making her attack higher. She's still dealing that damage on the attack, which is similar to Noelle.
And therefore Noelle uses the defense to increase her attack. And so here it seems like the attack wouldn't be bad in the 2-piece, and then the 4-piece set helping crystallize reactions, you could just, necessarily, I don't have Navia, or I'm a new player, I don't necessarily have her. everybody except me, because, you know, I just want to be spiteful and different, has those 20 wishes originally when they first get on their account for that Noelle banner to basically have a higher chance of getting Noelle. Very good character to have early on in the game. And I think especially here, you could totally change the game and at least get to a point, maybe you're in Fontaine, you don't have Navia, and you can't get her, but you could at least make a set that is very similar and does a lot of damage based off of crystallized reactions. And have fun.
Yeah, for sure. And to bounce off of that kind of, I know thinking about it more, I think Farina can be good, especially good with Noelle, especially with her recent buffs and changes in her kit. Playing with Noelle can be a lot of fun because Noelle is healing all party members, and so it just makes it that much easier to get, you know, more out of Farina's kit. So what I'm kind of thinking is like having Noelle maybe on this artifact set, playing with Farina and maybe another Geo support or just 2 other different elements, or if you want to go for Hydro Resonance, something like that. And what it brought to my mind was actually 4-piece Archaic Petra, because I know what that set does. The 2-piece is Geo damage bonus, and the 4-piece gives you like 35% damage bonus to the element that you cause a crystallized reaction with. So like say you're using this on your Yunjin, if your Yunjin causes an electro crystallized reaction, all electro is buffed by 35% for your party. So maybe throwing in something like that for off-field damage. So like you're creating Hydro Crystallize. Now your Farina off-field's dealing with damage, and the Noelle can still heal your party. So you can just go full damage on Farina or something like that.
That's actually a really good idea, because that team in and of itself, I mean, Farina uses those skills off-field, especially the Salon members, drains HP, but considering that the crystallized reactions are going to constantly be there, as well as Noelle's shield is extremely durable, you're not really going to be taking a lot of hits. And so you could actually be getting the stacks from Farina's HP increase and decrease from not only healing yourself constantly, from Farina healing you possibly, but also Farina taking damage away from you. But you wouldn't have to worry about HP because this amazing shield or constant crystallized reaction shields are on you as well. So those are going to be constantly on you, never breaking. So many things I'm just super excited for. Because this just changes the game, I think, for a lot. So anyways, on to the next thing. We don't want to take up too much time on one thing. The next part is Sizwen, and we already talked about how she's the 5-star character that we think is going to be. She was a 4-star originally. A lot of people were saying that. She even kind of has the look of one. But the 5-star character is what we're kind of seeing now. A lot of people are changing to it. And she might even be a Hydro Bow character. So that's kind of interesting to see. You know, we had Child or Tartaglia and Yelan. And I don't think there's another Hydro Bow character. I'm probably going to get flamed in the comments for it. But hopefully there's not another one. That's not on my mind. But Sizwen will be at least the other 5-star Hydro Bow character. And what will be pretty good to actually see come out. And then, you know, obviously knowing that Chloron's going to be a 5-star Electro Sword. And then we know Arlecchino is going to be, or might possibly be with speculation, a Pyro Polearm character. So that'll be great to see, looking at different characters that are going to be around.
Now, Sizwen is at 4.7 is the speculation right now?
At least we think so, yeah. She might come alongside of Chloron.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting.
So getting 2 5-stars that are new in one version is kind of nice to see, especially considering it's not at the beginning of, you know, the versions for a new area, but it is towards the end. And that may actually, that kind of, now that you just said that, it kind of brings to my mind is, does that mean in 4.7 we're going to start with triple banners? I know that is my own personal speculation. I have nothing to back that up besides the idea that they have, at least to my knowledge, and I have yet to see them actually do anything with double new 5-stars on a version. I don't believe so. I've only seen new 5-stars per version. I have never seen them back to back, like on the same banner. So we'll kind of see.
Yeah,
usually
I'm trying to think right now, and I don't think they have. They've also never like thrown a new 4-star, 2 new 4-stars on one banner. They've usually been one at a time.
Except at the beginning, because
beginning of the game, you need all these characters, right?
New, so you kind of everything was new. Anyways, that's completely unnecessary. But anyways, the next thing we see is in 4.2, we see the event that might come in, and it looks like we might get a free Fremine, which is kind of great for me because I don't believe I have him. And that would be great to have, as well as some people that may even say that you could actually get some constellations for him.
Here's my Sino joke of the day. It's a Fremine.
And that's exactly why we're going to go on to the next part of the video. We're just going to pretend like that didn't happen. That is sadly going to stay in the recording. But the next thing that we see is with Chevreuse, who is going to be a 4-star character. I believe we talked about earlier, Rift did at least, and talked about how she was going to be coming along soon in 4.3, I believe, with Navia. So it'd be kind of cool. And she kind of has an interesting speculated kit. I mean, to see pyro and electro resistance decrease probably of the enemies that she maybe hits or whatever, or maybe in a field with her burst, maybe another energy character, because of course every support has to back off of energy, because they always do. And then at least in the next point that she may even, you know, increase some overload damage, and considering that she might help Chloron in the future, maybe with some
yeah, that's definitely true. Like
overload
using
stuff.
Bennett with Chloron, and then using Chevreuse and maybe a Swirler or just another electro unit or pyro unit. That definitely does seem to be pretty cool. And also, like, I don't think anywhere in the past have we gotten a character specifically designed to work around overload.
You could technically argue that if you just did a bunch of Electro with like Hu Tao or Diluc on a 4-piece Crimson, and I know that that does help overload damage, but nothing that is specifically, at least that I can remember, in a character's personal kit that helps themselves or other characters specifically for overload.
Right.
And I think, you know, 4.3 is also when we think of Raiden's coming around, which, I mean, what better character to do that with? She's the Archon.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about that. Plus, you know, attack increase, which is going to help Raiden for damage, and everything just in general. Most characters are going to help that as well. So that seems like a really, really cool time, at least for this character.
Yeah, for sure. And being a polearm unit looks like, and if she's going to be type of support, we've been saying that, probably a go-to for free-to-play players, at least, is Favonius Lance. So moving on to more about Navia's kit, and actually looking at her signature weapon being a Claymore, and kind of adding in a new weapon for the Claymore category. I know because there's Redhorn and maybe some others, but Redhorn seems to be like the obvious number one. So maybe this weapon will kind of be a rival. That'll be kind of cool to see. But it does look like this weapon will be a crit rate main stat weapon. And then looking at some constellations with Navia, C1 at this time seems to be gaining an extra shot with her skill. We do know that like puts out some turrets and deals some geo damage, and then also pulls in those crystal shards to do some crystallized damage or get some buffs there. So that C1 just adds another shot to that. Maybe it's saying an extra charge of it, or it's just adding another version of it. Then looking at our C2, that just seems to be another big buff to crit rate. So it does seem like when you go to build Navia, you're probably 100% going to want to crit damage Circlet, especially if you're going after her weapon and you're going after constellations on her.
I think the biggest thing that we're going to see with her, especially, you know, other weapons like you were talking about, I think Redhorn is great, especially for characters that are kind of in the past, like Noel and Ito, obviously Ito's weapon. But I think Beacon of the Red Sea at least had that crit rate main stat for Dia's weapon. And that's another pretty good, at least, maybe that will be the rival for this weapon. We don't know what the ability could be. Maybe some crystallized stuff, once again, heavily helping the idea of crystallized reactions for different characters. I think is going to be a great thing. And if that artifact set is based off of just collecting shards, or the crystallized shards, and even her weapon is just based off of collecting crystallized shards, this doesn't necessarily have to be on a Geo character. I think this weapon, as well as the artifact set, could be kind of a cool thing that could at least help more than one character, instead of just specifically only helping maybe even Geo characters. But that's besides the point.
Last thing we'll quickly cover on is the fact that we will be getting a new Fontaine area speculated around 4.6. So that'll be very exciting to see what new areas we'll get around there. And I do believe that's when we will be getting Arlecchino. So some new area alongside of Arlecchino seems to be pretty exciting. Because I know, Vixen, you're waiting for Arlecchino. So he's been waiting since the start of the game.
If you're in our Discord, you know that everything that my profile picture is Arlecchino, and I'm waiting for every single Harbinger. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to be great for the new area, for looking into the new stuff that's going to be really, really cool, and I'm dead set on waiting for all the Harbingers. But yes, Arlecchino is definitely going to be my favorite, I think, so far. Maybe the Tsaritsa, but you know, that's going to be years down the line, so we'll see.
All right, but I do think that covers everything for today. Today was a chonker, you could say. There was a lot of information in that one, so we do appreciate you guys staying here and really going over all this new information. So it's very exciting, so thank you for your time.
Please do like and subscribe to the video, and just make sure as well that we do have a Discord. So if you guys do want to go ahead and at least get with our community, we already do have a bunch of members. We go over speculations of what we think is going to be happening, things that we talk about in the video, even some ideas to come up with videos in the future. A lot of different things that we talk about. If you guys would like to join the Discord that we have, that is going to be in one of our links in our home YouTube page if you guys want to go check that out. But besides that, that's all we've got for today and this week on the Interact post for this next article. So we'll see you in the next one.